trade hub was alive with voices, lights, and movement, a place where humans and aliens from every corner of the galaxy came to bargain, trade, and argue. In the middle of all this noise was a small food shop, one that nobody paid much attention to. The shop was ordinary, the kind of place travelers entered only when hunger forced them. But behind its counter worked Ethan, a young human waiter who never imagined his life would be anything more than serving drinks, cleaning tables, and listening to the endless complaints of strangers. Every day he smiled politely, even when people ignored him. To most customers, he was invisible, just a simple human in an apron. Too many alien nobles and merchants saw humans as weak or low, useful only for serving. Ethan had grown used to it. He accepted the whispers, the mocking laughs, and the looks that slid over him as if he did not matter. Still, inside him there was a quiet strength, something he himself did not yet recognize. That night, the hub was louder than usual. Outside, alien traders shouted about rare crystals. Soldiers boasted of their victories and smugglers bragged about their stolen goods. Inside the shop, Ethan moved quietly, carrying trays of steaming food, wiping spilled drinks, and making sure everyone was satisfied. It was routine, another evening like any other, or so he thought. Then, near the corner of the room, he noticed her. She sat alone at a small table, hidden under a ragged cloak. Her head was lowered, her hands trembling as if she had not eaten in days. Other patrons glanced at her but quickly turned away. Some even laughed cruelly, calling her stray, beggar, and worse. Ethan paused, his heart tightening. He had seen poor travelers before, but there was something different about this one, something about the way she kept her eyes down, hiding, as if she carried a secret too heavy. For her small frame, he approached carefully, his footsteps quiet. When he placed a bowl of hot stew in front of her, she startled as if no one had ever shown her kindness before. She whispered, her voice soft. I have no credits." Her words trembled like her hands. Ethan simply smiled and said, "No one should starve. Don't worry about it." He stepped back, leaving the bowl in front of her. The girl looked at the food with wide eyes, almost suspicious. Then hunger won. She lifted the spoon with shaking fingers and began to eat. For a moment, the shop around her seemed to fade. She ate like someone who had not tasted warmth in days. Ethan watched silently from a distance. Not for thanks, not for attention, just making sure she was safe. But others noticed too. At a nearby table, two alien merchants exchanged uneasy looks. One whispered to the other. "Her eyes. Did you see? They glowed for a second." The other hissed back. "Don't speak it aloud. If it's her, then death follows." Ethan did not hear their words, but he saw their fear. He frowned, confused. Why would two powerful merchants be afraid of a starving girl? His gaze returned to her, and in that moment she looked up. For the briefest second, her hood slipped back, and her eyes caught the light. They shone faintly, like twin stars trapped in her gaze. Ethan froze, breath caught in his throat. They were beautiful but also haunting. The kind of eyes that told stories of battles, kingdoms, and sorrow. She quickly pulled her hood tighter and looked down. But it was too late. Whispers began to spread through the shop, quiet but sharp. "It can't be her. The runaway. The cursed child." Ethan felt the air grow heavy, tension wrapping around the room like a storm waiting to strike. The girl finished the stew in silence, and when she looked up at Ethan, her lips moved into the smallest, weakest smile. It was not the smile of royalty or power. It was the smile of someone who had been ignored by the universe, suddenly reminded of kindness. She whispered only one word. "Thank you." Then her head lowered again. Hiding from the stares, Ethan nodded, his heart strangely unsettled. He could not explain why, but he knew something had shifted. The food shop felt less ordinary. The night felt heavier, like a door had opened, and he had just stepped through it unknowingly. Outside, the hub's noise continued as always. Traders fought over prices. Smugglers slipped into shadows and soldiers laughed. But somewhere in those streets, dark figures were already searching, following rumors, hunting whispers, waiting for signs of glowing eyes. And without realizing it, Ethan had placed himself. In the center of it all, he was still just a waiter, apron tied around his waist, hands rough from carrying trays. But with one simple act of kindness, his life had already changed. The strangers in the corner booth knew it. The merchants who whispered knew it. Even the girl, hiding her face under the hood, seemed to know it. Ethan did not yet understand, but destiny had already chosen him, and it began not with war or power, but with something as small and as human as offering food to someone who needed it. The galaxy would remember this night, though Ethan could not yet imagine how. For now, all he knew was that kindness had cost him nothing, but soon he would learn it would cost him everything. The night after Ethan gave the girl food, he thought life would return to normal. He cleaned tables, stacked dishes, and told himself it was just an ordinary act of kindness. But deep inside, unease lingered. He kept remembering her eyes, the faint glow that made the merchants whisper in fear. Something about her felt different, dangerous even, though she had done nothing but eat in silence. The next day he noticed the change. Strange figures had begun appearing near the shop, hooded and silent. They never ordered food, never spoke to him, just watched. Their eyes followed every movement. Not only his, but especially the corner where the girl had sat. Ethan pretended not to see, but he could feel the weight of their stares. His co-worker, an older woman named Mara, pulled him aside. Her voice was sharp, urgent. "Stay away from that alien girl," she hissed. "Do you know what people say about her? They call her cursed. They say entire fleets have burned because of her bloodline. If you're smart, you'll forget she ever walked in here." Ethan tried to laugh it off, but Mara's face was pale, her hands trembling. It wasn't gossip, it was fear. That evening, as the market outside the shop roared with life, the girl returned. She wore the same ragged cloak, moving carefully like someone hiding from hunters. This time she didn't sit in the corner. She came directly to him. Her voice was quiet, but her words were firm. "You saved me yesterday. I had no right to take your food, but you gave it anyway. You must know it puts you in danger." Ethan blinked, confused. "Danger? From who?" "You were just hungry." She shook her head, her hood still low over her face. "Not just hungry. I was running. They're looking for me." Before Ethan could ask who they were, the door opened and two alien traders walked in. They pretended to order drinks, but their eyes flicked to her, watching, calculating. The girl stiffened, whispering, "Please don't let them see me. If they know I'm here, you will suffer too." Ethan felt a chill spread through him. He wasn't a soldier, wasn't a fighter, he was a waiter. But as he looked at her trembling hands, at the way she hid even when she spoke, he realized she wasn't lying. That night, whispers filled the hub streets. Bounty hunters had arrived, tall armored beings carrying strange weapons. They stopped merchants, questioned travelers, and even offered gold for information. Their words echoed. "The runaway daughter of the stars must be found." Ethan heard them while taking out trash. His heart raced. Daughter of the stars. Was that what she meant? Was she royalty? A fugitive? Or worse, a spark that could ignite war? When he returned inside, he found her sitting quietly near the back. She looked up at him and said softly, "You wonder why I came back? You wonder why I didn't run farther? But the truth is, I have nowhere else to go. The moment you gave me food, I believed I could trust you." Ethan felt torn. Every part of his mind screamed to send her away, to walk out of this before it consumed him. Yet his heart refused. She had nothing, no one. And still she looked at him with eyes that held both fear and hope. Mara noticed too. She cornered Ethan in the kitchen. "You're a fool if you keep helping her. The hunters will tear this place apart. They'll kill you, kill us all just for hiding her. Do you want to die for a stranger?" Ethan stayed silent, but the question haunted him. Did he want to risk everything for someone he barely knew? As the night deepened, more cloaked figures appeared outside, standing just far enough away to avoid suspicion. Their presence pressed against the shop walls like a storm waiting to break. Ethan felt it in his chest. Danger was closing in. He wasn't ready. He wasn't strong. He was just a waiter with tired hands. But as he glanced at the girl, still, Sitting quietly, still trembling, he knew he had already made his choice without speaking it aloud. The hub was alive with trade, with laughter and shouts, but beneath the noise, something darker was moving. Powerful beings hunted in the shadows, searching for her, and Ethan had unknowingly stepped into their path. One small kindness had tied his fate to hers, and though he didn't yet understand what it meant, the first cracks of destiny were already spreading. Soon he would learn the price of helping her was far greater than he could imagine. Ethan didn't sleep that night. Every sound from the street outside made him sit up, afraid that armored boots would storm into his shop. But morning came quietly, and with it, the girl returned. She slipped through the back door this time, her hood still tight around her face. Her eyes darted nervously at every corner as though shadows themselves might attack her. Ethan met her in the kitchen, flour still on his hands from baking bread. For a long moment they just looked at each other. Finally she spoke, her voice steady though low. "I should not be here. I bring trouble wherever I go." Ethan shook his head. "You're hungry. You're tired. You're safe here." She hesitated, then said something that made his heart stop. "You don't even know who I am, do you?" Ethan frowned. "You're someone who needed food." The girl lowered her hood slightly, revealing her face more clearly than before. Her skin shimmered faintly in the light, not quite like any species Ethan had seen. And her eyes, those glowing, star-like eyes, looked straight into his. "My name is Liara," she whispered, "daughter of House Solari." Ethan stared blankly. The name meant nothing to him. Seeing his confusion, she sighed. "In your words, I'm a princess, but not the kind who lives in fairy tales. My people wanted to marry me off to secure power. When I refused, they decided I was expendable." Ethan's jaw tightened. He couldn't believe it. "So they're hunting you, your own people?" Liara nodded, pain flickering across her face. "Not just them, others too. They think if they capture me, they can control my family, but what they don't understand is, I would rather die free than live as a chain." Ethan leaned against the counter, trying to process. He was just a waiter, a servant to strangers. How could a royal fugitive end up in his tiny shop? Yet as he looked at her, he didn't see royalty. He saw someone fragile, someone who had been treated as a prize to be traded, not a person. And that stirred something deep in him. He prepared a plate of bread and fruit, sliding it in front of her. She looked down at it, then at him. "Why do you help me?" she asked softly. "You know I bring danger. You know they will come for you if they find me here." Ethan shrugged. "Maybe, but I can't just let someone starve. Besides," he added with a small smile, "you don't seem cursed to me." For the first time, Liara laughed, a short, broken laugh, but real. "If my people heard you say that, they would call you a fool. They believe kindness is weakness. They believe mercy is a chain." She touched the bread lightly, almost reverently. "But you gave me more hope than I thought I still had." While they spoke outside in the market, armored bounty hunters questioned shopkeepers, their voices carrying over the noise. Ethan's co-worker Mara peeked through the window and whispered, sharply, "They're getting closer. You need to send her away now." Ethan glanced at Liara, her hands trembling as she tried to eat. She looked so small in that moment, so unlike the threat everyone feared, and though every part of him wanted to stay safe, he knew the truth. He couldn't push her back out into that danger. As the day passed, Liara told him more. She explained how her family's empire stretched across systems, but its heart was rotten. She had seen cruelty in her own home, slaves beaten, servants treated worse than animals, and when she tried to change it, they silenced her, forced her to accept marriage to a warlord twice her age. She ran instead, and ever since, hunters had stalked her through the stars. Ethan listened quietly, anger slowly burning in his chest. It wasn't just about helping her anymore. It was about the injustice she had suffered. Still, doubt gnawed at him. He wasn't a hero, wasn't trained for battles or politics. He was a waiter with calloused hands and tired eyes. But Liara seemed to sense his fear. She leaned closer and whispered, "You don't understand. Humans are different. I felt it when you gave me food. You care without reason. That is more dangerous than any weapon." Her words lingered in his mind long after she fell silent. The day ended. The shop grew quiet, and Ethan locked the doors. He should have felt safe, but instead he felt the weight of a storm approaching. Liara sat at the corner table once again, but this time she wasn't just a stranger. She was someone who carried the burden of an empire, someone who had trusted him when no one else would, and Ethan, the simple waiter, realized with a heavy heart that his life would never return to normal. By choosing to protect her, even for a single night, he had chosen a path that would pull him far beyond the walls of his little shop. A bond had been formed, not through power or duty, but through kindness. And though Ethan could not yet see it, that bond would carry them into battles, into destinies, and into the stars themselves. The market was restless that night, louder than usual, but beneath the noise there was fear. Word had spread that bounty hunters had landed, not the ordinary thugs who chased smugglers, but the kind sent only for the most dangerous targets. They wore black armor that shimmered under the neon lights, their helmets marked with the insignias of ancient houses. Their weapons glowed faintly, humming with energy that could cut through steel. Everyone in the hub knew trouble had come. Inside the food shop, Ethan wiped the same table again and again, his hands unable to stay still. Liara sat in the shadows of the back room, her hood drawn low. She barely moved, barely breathed, trying to disappear. Ethan felt the tension in the air like a weight pressing on his chest. He wasn't a fighter, wasn't a soldier, yet he knew they couldn't stay much longer. The hunters were getting closer. Then the door slammed open. 2 armored figures stepped. In scanning the room with cold, glowing eyes, the shop fell silent, customers shrinking back, pretending to be invisible. Ethan's breath caught. He forced a smile, pretending to be calm. "Welcome, what can I get you?" His voice trembled just slightly. The taller hunter leaned forward, his voice metallic through the helmet. "We are searching for someone, a fugitive female, eyes that glow with the light of stars. Have you seen her?" Ethan froze. He wanted to lie, to send them away, but his tongue felt heavy. Before he could answer, Mara quickly stepped in, slamming a jug of water onto the counter. "We see many faces here, hunters, none worth remembering. Eat, drink, then leave." Her boldness surprised Ethan. The hunters stared at her for a long moment, then turned back to him. "If you are hiding her, human, you will die with her." The words hung in the air like a knife. When they finally left, Ethan's knees felt weak. He stumbled into the kitchen, finding Liara trembling. "They're close," she whispered. "I told you, I bring death with me." Ethan grabbed her hand before she could rise. "No, not death. Not if I can help it." She looked at him, shocked, as if no one had ever spoken to her with such certainty. That night, Ethan made a choice. He led Liara through a trapdoor behind the kitchen, down into the old tunnels that ran beneath the hub. Few remembered these tunnels, built by humans long ago as delivery routes. Now they were forgotten, abandoned. Ethan lit a small lamp and guided her carefully through the narrow passageways. Their footsteps echoed against damp stone, every sound making their hearts jump. At one turn, voices echoed down from above, hunters questioning traders, threatening to burn shops if no one spoke. Liara pressed herself against the wall, clutching Ethan's sleeve. Her breathing was fast, shallow. Ethan placed a steady hand on her shoulder, whispering, "It's all right, just keep moving, they don't know we're here." He didn't feel brave, but he had to sound like it. After what felt like hours, they reached a small hatch leading into an old storage room. Inside, a group of human workers were gathered, faces tired but kind. They were people Ethan had served before. Dockhands, loaders, poor men who remembered his smile when he brought food to their tables. Without hesitation, they helped pull Liara inside, covering the hatch with boxes. One of them, a tall man with grease-stained hands, whispered, "If you're protecting her, then we'll protect you both. We don't bow to hunters." Liara's eyes filled with shock. She looked from the men to Ethan, whispering, "They help you. They don't even know me. Why? Ethan smiled faintly. That's what humans do. She shook her head slowly. My people would never do this. To them, a stranger is nothing. But you are different. Dangerous because you care. As the hunters spread through the city, above, Ethan and Lyara remained hidden in the warmth of human company. She watched them share food, share stories, even laugh quietly despite the danger. It was the first time she realized why the galaxy feared humanity. Not because of their weapons or numbers, but because of their unity. Because they chose to stand together even when it cost them everything. Ethan looked at her in the flickering lamplight, her hood fallen back, her starlit eyes glowing softly in the shadows. For the first time, he saw not a fugitive princess, but someone who had been abandoned by her own people, someone learning what it meant to be treated as family, by strangers. And in that hidden room beneath the hub, while hunters searched above, something unspoken passed between them. A bond neither had asked for, but both now carried. Ethan knew there would be no turning back. He had stepped into her fight, and she had stepped into his life. The storm was only beginning, and already the weight of destiny pressed against them both. The city did not sleep. Even when the suns dipped low and the sky turned a cold shade of blue, the hub's lights burned. But tonight, the glow felt sharper, crueler. Rumors spread through the streets like wildfire. Hunters were offering gold, credits, even freedom to anyone who betrayed the runaway daughter of the stars. Whispers curled through every alley, every tavern, every crowded stall. Someone would give her up. Someone always did. Ethan knew this, and yet he stayed. He had hidden Lyara in the back storeroom, feeding her scraps of bread and soup while pretending to live his normal life. But his chest felt heavy. Every time the door creaked open, every time armored footsteps clanged outside, he thought it was the end. Still, when he saw her sitting quietly on the floor, her hood pulled low, he knew he couldn't abandon her. That evening, just as he was closing the shop, a shadow fell across the doorway. A hunter stepped inside, alone this time, but his presence filled the room like a blade at the throat. His visor gleamed red as he studied Ethan. "Human," he said flatly. "You know where she is." Ethan stiffened, trying to keep his hands from shaking. "I don't." The hunter leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Don't be a fool. She is no one to you. Hand her over, and you will live. More than that, you will be rewarded. A new life, wealth, safety." For a moment, Ethan's heart pounded with temptation. The thought of walking free, of leaving this nightmare behind, pressed against his mind. He imagined himself on another planet, far away, a life without fear. All it would take was one word, one betrayal. But then he remembered her face, thin and pale, trembling as she whispered, "I have no credits." He remembered her star-bright eyes shining with fear and hope as she ate the food he had given her. And he remembered the way she had laughed softly when he told her she wasn't cursed. That memory cut through the fear like fire through. Nice. Ethan straightened, forcing his voice steady. "I won't give her to you." The hunter's head tilted, almost amused. "You would throw away your life for a stranger?" Ethan's answer was quiet but firm. "No one deserves to be hunted for wanting to be free." The hunter hissed through his mask, reaching for his weapon. But before he could strike, the kitchen door burst open. Mara swung a frying pan with all her strength, smashing it against the hunter's arm. The weapon clattered to the floor. Ethan didn't think. He grabbed the nearest thing, a heavy serving tray, and slammed it into the hunter's head. The room exploded into chaos. Shouts rang through the streets as more hunters rushed toward the noise, but they were met with something unexpected. The dock workers, loaders, and poor humans Ethan had once served stood in the alleys with makeshift weapons, pipes, tools, even broken chairs. They had seen enough. Their voices rose not with fear but with defiance. Not this time, not here. The hunters had armor, had weapons, but the humans had something fiercer, unity. They fought like a tide, overwhelming the intruders with sheer will. For every man who fell, two more took his place. Ethan found himself in the middle of it all, striking, blocking, shouting orders without realizing it. He wasn't just a waiter anymore. Not in their eyes. In the storeroom, Liara pressed her hands to the wooden door, listening to the roar outside. Her heart trembled, not with fear, but with awe. No one in her world would have done this for her. In her empire, loyalty was bought with power and broken with greed, but here, strangers fought to protect one of their own, even though she wasn't theirs. Tears burned her eyes. Ethan stumbled back into the shop, bruised and bloodied, but alive. Liara rose to meet him. "You had a choice," she whispered. "You could have been safe, but you chose me." Ethan shook his head, wiping sweat from his brow. "No, I chose what was right." Outside, the hunters regrouped, their voices filled with fury. The fight wasn't over, the danger hadn't passed, but a spark had been lit. What began with a bowl of food had turned into something far greater. And in that moment, surrounded by ordinary people who had risen against giants, Ethan realized his life was no longer his own. He had stepped into a battle far beyond himself. His kindness had started it, but now his resolve would carry it forward. A simple choice had changed everything, and there was no going back. The night was silent except for the distant hum of starships passing overhead. But inside the small warehouse, where Ethan had hidden Liara, the air felt heavy, almost alive with tension. Every shadow seemed to shift. Every creak of the floorboard made his heart jump. He knew the hunters weren't done yet, and somewhere deep down, he realized that their fight was no longer just about survival. It was about sending a message. Ethan moved carefully, checking the barricaded doors and the few weak points in the walls. He had learned that brute force alone wouldn't win this battle. Not against the hunters, not against the reach of an empire that had eyes everywhere. He glanced at Liara, curled on the floor with her eyes wide and shining. "It's okay," he whispered. "I've got you." But even as he said it, he wondered how he could protect her from something so vast, so unyielding. Suddenly, a faint vibration ran through the floor, like a warning pulse. Ethan froze, straining his ears, and then he heard it, the soft hiss of a stealth ship landing nearby. Not the hunters, not any ordinary patrol. This was something else, something different, something unfamiliar. Before Ethan could react, a hatch opened, and a figure emerged, cloaked in shadows, but moving with purpose. The stranger's voice was calm, yet commanding. "You are far from safe, human, but you are not alone." Ethan instinctively took a step back. "Who are you?" The figure stepped closer, revealing eyes that glowed faintly like stars trapped in human form. "Someone who knows the stakes," the stranger said, "and someone who can help." Liara's gaze met the stranger's, and for the first time, a flicker of hope crossed her face. "Will they leave us alone?" she whispered, clutching Ethan's sleeve. The strangers shook their head. "No, they never do, but sometimes the impossible can become real." Ethan looked at Liara, then back at the stranger, realizing that their world, everything they had known, was about to change. The stranger moved swiftly, laying out a plan. "We must leave the city tonight," they said. "The hunters will regroup, and by morning, every alley will be watched. But there is a way, a route few know, and I will guide you." Ethan's mind raced, weighing trust against desperation. Every instinct told him to hesitate, yet something in the stranger's aura spoke of truths he could not ignore. As they prepared to leave, Ethan noticed subtle signs, the faint symbols etched on the walls, the markings on crates, hidden messages only someone like the stranger could read. It was a network, a map of hidden paths and secret allies, all designed to protect those the Empire wanted to crush. And suddenly, he understood that Liara's danger had drawn attention far beyond the city's limits. They moved silently through the dark streets, shadows among shadows, Ethan leading Liara carefully, the stranger guiding them with precise steps. The night stretched endlessly, filled with the threat of hunters at every turn. But then, from an abandoned plaza, they saw it, a starship unlike any Ethan had seen, sleek, silent, waiting as if it had been summoned by the night itself. The stranger gestured. "That is your chance, your path forward. But once you step aboard, nothing will be the same." Ethan looked at Liara, seeing her small hand tremble in his. Her trust in him burned like a fire he could not put out. "We go together," he said firmly, and she nodded, clinging to him like a lifeline. As they approached the ship, alarms suddenly blared in the distance. Hunters had found traces of them. The stranger whispered, "You must run faster than you ever thought possible." And in that moment, Ethan felt something awaken inside him, a courage born not from strength but from the simple truth that he could not let fear control his actions. They ran through alleys, across rooftops, hearts pounding in rhythm with the chase. The hunters. Shouts echoed behind them, but ahead the ship's hatch opened and the stranger ushered them inside. Just as the last hunter appeared at the edge of the plaza, Ethan felt the ship lift, rising into the sky, leaving danger behind, yet carrying a new responsibility. Inside the ship, the lights hummed softly and Liara finally exhaled. "We're safe, aren't we?" Ethan looked at her, a mixture of relief and determination in his eyes. "For now," he said, "but this is only the beginning." The stranger stepped forward, placing a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Your choices have brought you here, human, and from this moment you will be part of something greater than you can imagine." Ethan sank into a seat, Liara beside him, and for the first time he allowed himself to see what lay ahead. Not just survival, not just escape, but a path that could change the stars themselves. Their journey had begun, and with each pulse of the ship's engine, they were leaving behind the ordinary, stepping fully into the extraordinary. Outside, the city disappeared beneath the night, its lights shrinking like fireflies, and Ethan realized that everything he had thought about his life, his place in the universe, had been just a prelude. What mattered now was the choices he made in the moments that followed, choices that would not just decide their fate but could reshape the galaxy itself. The stars stretched endlessly outside the ship's window, glowing like ancient eyes watching silently. Ethan sat beside Liara, her head resting on his shoulder, her breathing slow but never fully at peace. She had escaped the hunters, escaped the city that wanted her chained, but Ethan knew they hadn't truly escaped, not yet. The stranger, now at the ship's controls, turned and spoke. "You both need to know. They're preparing something bigger. The Empire's reach is long and they don't forgive betrayal. They will send more than hunters next time." Ethan stood, his voice calm but sharp. "Then let them come. I'm not backing down." Liara looked up at him with wide eyes soft with disbelief. "You're not a soldier. You're not trained to fight wars." Ethan met her gaze, a quiet fire in his eyes. "Maybe not, but I'm done hiding." The ship descended hours later onto a remote moon, quiet and barren on the surface. But beneath it was something else, an old human outpost forgotten by the stars. But now lit with life, the landing doors opened and they stepped into the light, greeted by humans Ethan had never met. Former smugglers, engineers, soldiers without medals, and rebels who still believed in doing the right thing. One of them, a grizzled woman named Kael, looked at Liara and gave a respectful nod. "You're the reason they're tightening their grip. They fear what you might become." Liara stepped back nervously. "I'm just one person." But Kael shook her head. "No, you're more than that now. You gave them a reason to stand up, and that's what makes you dangerous." Ethan trained with them over the next few days, not with swords or lasers at first, but with knowledge. He learned how systems worked, how to think ahead, how to lead, not as a commander but as someone others trusted. Liara watched quietly as he grew. Her heart pulled in ways she didn't fully understand. In a quiet moment, under a blanket of artificial stars in the training dome, she turned to him. "Do you ever wish you had stayed in your shop? That you'd never seen me?" Ethan didn't answer right away. Then he smiled faintly. "I was invisible in that shop, but helping you, it made me visible. Not just to others, but to myself." Their peace didn't last. Of course it never does. One morning, a scout ship returned, smoking and damaged. The pilot stumbled out, blood on his lips. "They're coming. Not just hunters, a full enforcement fleet, and they've declared the moon a hostile zone." The room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. No surrender, no trial, no mercy. Layara turned to Ethan, her voice barely above a whisper. They'll destroy this place and everyone in it. Ethan stepped forward, looking at the men and women gathered. Then we fight, not for revenge, not for power. We fight because they think we won't. Kyle handed him a communicator. You've inspired them, waiter. Can you lead them now? Ethan hesitated only a second, then nodded. I'll do what I can and we'll do it together. The battle came fast. Fire and metal rained from the sky. Warships landed like thunder, shaking the ground. But the humans were ready, not with numbers but with grit. Ethan stood at the front, guiding people into cover, protecting Liara with every breath. When one of the hunters reached her, towering in black armor, she stood tall, eyes glowing. You wanted a weapon, she said. But I chose to be more than that. Then she raised her hands, unleashing a hidden pulse of energy that knocked the hunter back. Her bloodline's secret power, awakened not by rage, but by purpose. The battle turned, not because of power, but because of unity. Humans and aliens who believed in freedom fought, side by side. And slowly, inch by inch, they pushed the Empire back. When it was over, smoke rising from the cratered field, Layara knelt beside a wounded Ethan. You fought like a king, she whispered. Ethan laughed weakly. Still just a waiter? But those who watched didn't see a servant anymore. They saw the man who stood between a princess and death, the man whose kindness had started a movement. Later, as they prepared to leave the moon, Liara looked at him and said, They will write songs about this day. Ethan smiled. Let them. Just make sure they don't forget the stew I served. Together, they boarded the ship, not as fugitives, not as survivors, but as symbols. One human's quiet act of kindness had sparked something unstoppable, and across the stars that spark had become a fire that no empire could ever silence.